Hello, a very warm welcome to the Daily Politics on Friday. Now, as more and more details emerge about the dreadful state of the economy and public finances, we're going to have an exclusive poll on the public's reaction to the budget. Christopher Galley, the civil servant who leaked information to the Tories immigration spokesman Damien Green, is going to find out today if he is to lose his job in the Home Office. We're going to be discussing whistleblowing with another civil servant who was fired for leaking. After a difficult week, we'll be taking a closer look at the school secretary, Ed Balls. And Giles is going to be here, as usual, to see which political stories tickled your fancy this week. And with me today, I'm delighted to say we've got the commentator and author Douglas Murray and The Guardian's Michael White. Well, welcome to both of you. Now, of course, the very big story of this week has been the budget. And this morning, figures have revealed that the UK economy has shrunk by 1.9% in the first quarter of this year, which really does cast serious doubts on the Chancellor's forecast of a 3.5% drop in the current financial year. It was against this grim economic backdrop that Alistair Darling delivered his budget speech on Wednesday. And in the wake of that statement, we commissioned a poll to see what the public response was to the budget. So, first of all, we asked the question, putting your party allegiance aside, who do you trust most to steer Britain's economy through the current downturn? 34% of people said they trusted Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling. That's up from 28% next month. 31% trusted David Cameron and George Osborne, and that is down from 35% in March. And as for the Liberal Democrats, well, 10% trusted Nick Clegg and Vince Cable. That is up 1% from last month, the highest rating so far enjoyed by the Liberal Democrats. Then we asked the question, putting your party allegiance to one side, do you think this budget will be A, good for Britain, B, bad for Britain, C, it'll make no difference at all? Well, 20% of people asked said they thought the budget would be good for Britain. 19% said it would be bad. 55% said they didn't think it would make any difference at all. So, first of all, reaction to that, Douglas Murray. It seems as if the Tories are back where they were a few months ago.
Well, yes, to some extent, but then, I mean, I sort of feel, looking at that poll, that we wish you have the option for reopening nominations or something, or none of the above to tick the box. I mean, the public will fluctuate on a daily basis between the two main parties, and that's because really the situation economically is so dire. And it's so much worse, I think, than any of our politicians have been saying to the public. So much worse than the public realise that really it's not a single party or indeed a single two people from any one party that can get us out of this. The outlook for the future is terrible, and whoever's leading us will make moderately little amount of difference. Certainly there aren't very many interesting options on offer to the public at the moment.
It's an excellent point, isn't it? We're talking about whether this budget is going to fill the hole. It seems as if we don't really know how big the hole is even going to be.
Well, I agree with Douglas that people fluctuate. They're not sure. None of us is sure. Even the people with three brains aren't sure what's going to happen next. I disagree with him slightly about the economy. It's the public finances rather than the economy which is in a really dire state. And there are signs in the US and in Europe and even here that maybe the collapse in the output, the 1.9%, and beginning to bottom out. We may be getting to the worst of that. Question is, and it's partly Gordon Brown's own fault as Chancellor, a lot of it is the amount of money we're having to borrow. But even that, if I can put my old folks hat on, even that when I was born, the public debt was 250% of GNP at the end of World War II. It's going to peak, they say, at 79%. We've got to keep a perspective. Austerity happens. Recessions happen. Young people haven't experienced it yet, but we do get through it in the end. It's just going to be tough.
Right. The methods of getting through it, though, let's talk about those. The real headline grabber was that top rate of tax. Now, I predict you weren't dancing a jig when you heard
No,
that.
I mean, I think it's a catastrophic decision for the government to make. We need, at the moment, high earners to be pumping money into the economy. We need charitable donation, charitable giving and things to be high. We need people to have a disposable income to get back into the economy. The government is doing something which all sort of reactionary left-wing governments have tended to do, which is to make a sort of token, really, attempt to tax the wealthy. In fact, this doesn't raise almost any money for the government. What it does is it puts an astonishing dampener on the economy generally by squeezing the most productive bit and allowing the largest, the most unproductive bit, government, to do its worst.
But it's playing very well out there, isn't it, Douglas? I mean, you look at the populist poll, 57% of people said, yes, we think this is a good idea, do tax them.
Well, I wish those people knew how little effect this is going to have, in fact, how much damage it's going to do in the end. I think it's an example of a headline-grabbing figure, as you say, but if people could just look behind that and look at the effect of it, I think they'd realise this is worse than tokenism. This is actually damaging. Michael?
Well, he's half right and he's half wrong. What was the top rate of income tax during most of Mrs Thatcher's premiership? 60%. Lawson got it down to 40 right towards the end. But he's right about the tax take. In fact, in this country and in the US, rich people pay most of the income tax. They're still ever so rich and they're getting richer by the day. So at one level you think, well, they messed it up. They might as well pay to start putting it right. The trouble is, that's a theoretical position. On a practical level, the rich also have better accountants. And the real question is, does this generate any more money? Because they do pay about half the total income tax. We have a progressive income tax system in this country, unlike continental Europe, where they whack it all onto that. So there are technical issues here, not just the headline grabbing, which has made the Chancellor popular this morning, but may not be in a week or so's time.
Put the technicals to one side just for a moment, just as a zeitgeist, let's say. I mean, does this indicate, as some commentators are saying, finally, it's the last nail in New Labour's coffin, all of that is over, this is back to old Labour, the old Labour that perhaps, well, you will remember very well, some of us will not remember so well, Michael, if you don't mind me saying.
What was interesting about the budget was the old Labour people hanging around on the back benches didn't cheer when Darling did this. I don't see Darling as an old Labour type. Maybe Gordon Brown said, go on, do it, because Brown was keen on a 50% tax rate in 1997 or 98, and Blair and Mandelson stopped him. Then Mandelson was mysteriously pushed under a bus. I wonder why. No, I don't think it's old Labour, but it is in the terms that Douglas is bad for perception of the Labour government, so it's just another burden they're going to have to wear.
And New Labour has been pronounced dead more oftentimes than I can count now.
Yeah. David Cameron isn't going to repeal it. He and Osborne were quite specific. Yeah, rightly so, in my view, because it's a trap. They weren't going to fall into it.
Right. Well, I mean, hopefully, we were hoping to speak to somebody, one of those old Labour voices, but I don't think we can just yet. Hopefully
I can do old Labour if you need somebody. You know? Well, I know the script.
Go on then. Well, fill us in on this, because if they didn't fall for the trap, as you say, but inadvertently, is this party going to rip itself apart as a byproduct?
Not until after the general election. The old Labour view is Thatcher and Blair and Brown gave their head to the city, gave their head to untrammelled free markets. Free markets never correct themselves. You didn't regulate them properly, and therefore we should go back to high taxation and nationalisation. But it's a very minority view. The reason the banks have been nationalised is not because Alistair Darling wants to nationalise them, because they're the only game in town. After all, the Americans have done it. So the old Labour view ain't going to come back.
May I say congratulations for stepping in and filling time. We were hoping to speak to Alan Simpson. I'll let you into a little TV secret. Some gubbins isn't working properly, but we hope to go back to him in a little while. Let's, though, just talk about another subject that's been playing big this week. It's been quite a week for leaks. There was, of course, the ongoing saga over the leaked Damien McBride emails. Today, Christopher Galley, the civil servant behind some of the leaks to the Tory MP Damien Green, will learn whether or not he is to be dismissed from his job in the Home Office. And, of course, you'll remember that after the Conservatives' immigration spokesman made public a succession of embarrassing high-profile leaks from the Home Office, the police launched an investigation. As a result of all that, Damien Green and Christopher Galley were arrested. Neither were charged, neither will face prosecution. Both have denied any wrongdoing. Would it, though, be fair to dismiss Mr. Galley from the Home Office just when leaking maybe you think is justified? In a moment, we're going to be speaking to another civil servant who was dismissed for leaking. First, though, here's Anne Alexander with her guide to whistleblowing.
Britain has a fine tradition of the whistleblower, the often lowly, normally faceless civil servant who breaks with a strict code of discretion to reveal what they see as injustice within the corridors of power. This image of the selfless public servant was sealed with the case of Clive Ponting. The former Ministry of